Thank you for listening to the BJJ Brick Podcast. We'll be bringing you Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and good times. We hope to flatten your Jiu-Jitsu learning curve, help you get the most out of your grappling ability, and meet your goals both on and off the mat.
Welcome back, my friends. This is episode 84 of the BJJ Brick Podcast. My name is Byron, and I'm here with my buddy Gary.
How you doing today, Byron?
Gary, I'm doing great. Thanks for asking. How are you, my friend?
Oh, I'm doing great. I'm ready for episode 84 of the BJJ Brick Podcast today.
Yep, we have an interview with a gentleman named PJ Waicus. He's sharing his story and what Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu means for him and how it's helped him overcome some things in life and just how important it is to him. So a very interesting story, and I think we could all relate to going to Jiu-Jitsu and getting something out of it more than just the martial art aspect of it.
That is so true, definitely. Before we start getting into our meat and potatoes of the show, I'd like to talk a little bit about our audio book that we have available for purchase. Byron put together an audio book. It's only $11.99, and it's going to guide you through your first year of jiu-jitsu. That's where a lot of mistakes are made. A lot of times you don't get good advice. You don't have a mentor, and definitely this is trying to guide you through that. Absolutely,
and it's the money goes directly to supporting the podcast and helping us out here and covering our costs and things like that. So definitely an easy way to support the show and help you out. And if you're a little bit past your first year, I'm sure there's still some great information in there that we could help you out with.
Yeah, and it's from my buddy Byron, so you know it's good stuff.
Well, thank you, Gary. We also have an email list we send out every week on Tuesdays. You can sign up for that on the email, on the website, or I butcher this more than anything else we say, or on the Facebook page. Just put your name and address, email address into the little form there, and you'll get an email on Tuesday with the show notes and a link to a Dropbox folder with some more audio files in there to cover a little variety of subjects.
Well, you know the best thing about that, where you said you butchered that?
Yeah.
You now have a new nickname on the mat. Byron the Butcher Jabbar. That's a pretty scary nickname.
Is it because I'm butchering my techniques?
I don't know about that. I think it's more like you're butchering arms and legs.
Oh, man. That could be taken either way, I guess. So it depends on the day I show up, I guess.
Yeah.
And we all have good days and bad days, I think.
We all do. That's part of life, part of jiu-jitsu.
Any interesting stuff happened to you this week on the mats there, my friend?
Nothing really. Really just working some crazy takedowns into leg locks. That's about it. What about you?
Nothing major. I'm still wearing my little knee brace thing, but I don't notice it much.
Well, I don't think nice. You should come and train with Miles and I then with the takedowns to leg locks we're training.
Yeah, I've been dodging you, buddy. So,
actually, we've been dodging you.
I would just have to avoid the takedown to begin with, or do you have a counter to when I
pull guard?
Just pull guard. Pull butterfly guard is what I pull when leg locks are a foot.
Yeah, that way you can put your feet on the mat.
Is that what you want?
No, it's makes it harder to attack your feet. I want your feet in a scramble.
In a scramble, or up underneath your arm somewhere, huh?
Yeah, that'd be nice if you just start off right there.
All right, well, I'll keep this in mind for next time we meet on the mats, my friend.
Not me, I'm running from the butcher.
Let's roll our quote of the week. Last week we had a really fun interview with a gentleman named Mark Mullen, and he was kind enough to give us our quote of the week for this week. So here we go.
Chris Howder. And he's one of the first American black belts. And he said, it's not the most talented, it's not the person with the greatest natural ability, it's who's left at the end who gets the black belt. And so many far more superior athletes have passed through the mats of my academies over the years.
Yeah.
But what I have is stick-to-itiveness. I have perseverance. I stay on it. There's actually, I have another quote here by Henry Rollins. He's quite an inspiration to me. But he says, I don't have talent. I have tenacity. I have discipline. I have focus. And I I know without any illusions where I came from and what I can go back to. So this is kind of a mantra for me, where I'm a person of very modest athletic talents, but I don't quit. I just keep showing up day after day, and all of the good things in my life have been a result of inch by inch forward progress, fighting the pull of gravity.
I love that quote. It's so relatable, too, because most people aren't going to be walking in with that, like the talent or that myth of the talent, just be good at something right away. It's important to have that ability to stick with it and to be mentally tough.
Yeah, something that's going to support you in all of the other endeavors in your life also.
Yeah, that's a great quote. Thank you. Gary, we got 2 quotes for the price of 1 this week.
And that's awesome. And we actually got, who would have thought we would have got a quote from Henry Rollins? But that's Henry Rollins to a T right there.
Yep. Both of those quotes were on the same lines, is that just keep showing up and keep going through your training process, and you're going to get better step by step.
People ask me all the time, because I've been doing this for a long time, like, hey, what do you do? How'd you get good? How'd you do this and that? And all I say is, man, I just show up. I'm that guy. This hit me to a T right there. I'm that guy. I don't quit. You see me walk on the mat when I couldn't even walk, but I'll still find a way to train. Even if it's 1 day a week. I probably spent a year training 1 day a week, but I still would not quit. That 1 day a week was like the only time I had available to train. I'm always going to find a way to train, and I think jiu-jitsu is made up of so many of those people. We may not be the most athletic, the most talented, but man, there's some mentally strong people and who really love it. You have to love it too, because if you don't love it, you are going to quit. You have to love the sport and just keep training. And I always tell myself, when I'm not training, somebody else is training, whether it be you or another one of my training partners. You guys are training, and you guys are getting better. So I want to train. I want to keep up with you guys.
I like how people are always lining up asking Gary how to get good, and he always comes back with this response. He's always addressing the masses with.
Well, I'm not good yet, though, Byron.
But everybody wants to know, Gary. What's the secret, man?
The secret's mat time, getting out there. In my opinion,
I think there's something to that.
Yeah, you're not going to get better not training.
There's always those people that come in and are just pick it up easier.
Yeah, and that's frustrating because I started training with you, and I was frustrated because you picked it up much easier than me. And I know you're probably going to try to lie your way out of this, but I started a couple weeks before Byron. And I tell you, for that whole first year, it was me and Byron were the beginners, and then there was a couple of people that had been training for a while. So they didn't want to train with us because we were horrible. So Byron and I trained, and every day Byron would armbar me from his guard about 15 times. And every day I'd go home and put a bag of peas on my arm, and because I was too stupid to tap. And see, I really needed the audio booklet telling me, hey, it's good to tap. I had a little bit of an ego, and Byron straightened my arm out constantly. But I was frustrated because you were learning so much easier than me. But I'm also that guy, when I get frustrated, I'm not going to quit. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to, sooner or later, I'm going to make it over that hill.
Yeah, that's the mental toughness that sometimes the athletic person, everybody picks up jiu-jitsu at their own rate, and I've had lots of people I've trained with who have just picked it up way quicker than I picked it up. I mean, that's just part of it. But if they don't stick with it, they don't even make it to blue belt, let alone black belt. The music is telling us, Gary, that we have got to keep things moving today and get on with our article of the week.
I tell you, this week we got a good one. The article is called "When Jiu-Jitsu is Like Brushing Your Teeth," and it's from the blog A Skirt on the Mat. But Byron, tell me how jiu-jitsu is like brushing your teeth.
Well, if you get too much toothpaste on your toothbrush, it's just you can't. They don't recommend. I don't know. Damn it! I feel like there was going to be a joke that came out of my mouth when I started that.
You need the right amount of toothpaste. Otherwise, you're wasting it. And and you're not getting as much effectiveness out of it.
There you go.
But no, this is a great article. Kind of almost a little bit what we're talking about here. When jiu-jitsu is like brushing your teeth. The act of brushing your teeth is something hope everybody does on a regular basis, and once, twice, 62 times a day. But that's not the big point. The big point is it's something you're going to do on a regular basis. It's like
a habit.
It's a habit. It's going to feel weird when you miss it. It's not negotiable. You don't question it. You just do it. It's built into your day. And basically, jiu-jitsu is like brushing your teeth. You need to get to the point. It's like, hey, I'm just going to do it. It makes me feel better. It makes me a better person. I just love it. And it's just like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to find time to do it, and I'm just going to make sure it happens.
Yeah, I think of jiu-jitsu, the added benefit of exercise is often viewed as an unpleasant thing. It's something that you do because you feel obligated to do it for yourself and to stay healthy. But jiu-jitsu, if you could, hopefully you enjoy it as much as Gary and I do, but if you could at least make it a habit to where you're not having to drag yourself to the gym. You just like, it's Thursday, or it's Friday, whatever day you go train, today's jiu-jitsu day. And you're ready to go. You don't have to take that mental energy to like get yourself to go. You just go. Like I can't. If I end up in my bed and I end up like crashing on the couch before it's I should or whatever, and I wake up, I have to go brush my teeth. Like if I go to bed without brushing my teeth, I have to get up out of bed and brush my teeth before I can go to sleep. I'm always a little mad at myself. Like, dang it, I'm already in bed. I got to brush my teeth and I got to get up and do it. But
I noticed too. You carry a toothbrush most places you go, and I notice you keep one. You have a built-in pocket inside your gi, and I notice you have two pockets, one for the toothbrush and one for some toothpaste. And I notice you carry that around everywhere you go.
My dentist gives me a little tiny tube of toothpaste that just fits in there real nice.
Yeah, and I noticed I like the gingivitis patch you have on your gi.
Hey, I'm on the Colgate Cavity Patrol, Gary. I'm one of those guys.
But no, I mean, this article goes right back to our quote. It's you just do it. Show up, put it into your day, and make it a habit.
Yeah. Speaking of making it a habit, we'll take this like to the next level. I've never been real big on flossing. Like my dentist always floss every day, and I was like, yeah, sure.
I think most of us are like that.
But a few months back, I heard somewhere just floss one tooth. Just do that for like a month. And so I said, I'll do this. How easy is this? It takes no effort to floss one tooth. It's going to add, like 3 seconds to my nightly routine. So I get out the floss, I floss a tooth, and then why not floss the rest of them? That's what happens to me. I don't know how many times I just floss one or two teeth. Usually, if you get it out and you do that part of it, the rest of it's like brushing my teeth. I'm not going to quit brushing my teeth in 10 seconds. I'm going to go ahead and finish brushing my teeth all the way.
Were you supposed to just floss one tooth forever?
It's what you're supposed to tell yourself mentally that I'm just going to floss one. And maybe, I don't remember, maybe a couple times when I was in a hurry or I didn't have, I just did, okay, I did it today, I flossed. But really, it's now part of my routine, and I floss every night, and it takes no additional effort or energy. And what was once like an annoying thing that I really didn't like to do is just something I do before I go to bed.
Yeah, hey, it's
a little trick.
Turns into a habit. I would be curious to know if somebody just brushes one tooth. Just brushes, not the floss part.
You got to get but you got to get the front of it, that one, and the back of that one, and not get the other ones too good.
Yeah, well, you can get them a little bit.
Yeah, if you struggle with brushing your teeth, you do it once a day or maybe less than that. I think twice is now the recommended amount of brushings that they recommend.
But Byron, I know a lot of people come to you for advice. Well, not on gingivitis topics, but jiu-jitsu topics.
Yeah.
And you always get that person we're talking about, how we love training, and I don't really need to set time aside because I know I'm going to make, it's going to come up during the week. But what do you tell somebody who tells you, hey, Byron, I'm struggling a little bit. I'm not having fun. I'm forcing myself to come to class or to practice. What would you tell that person?
That's an interesting question. I would ask them if they ever had fun with it, because I think in the beginning is the hardest part. You know,
True. Yes.
And then if they did have fun with it, maybe their expectations or their goals are a bit off. You know, if they're at that year and a half mark and they're not in their blue belt, or maybe 2 years or 2.5 years, and they're frustrated in the blue belt, that's a goal that maybe they should evaluate and remember why they came. Or maybe that their training partners are that could, having not fun training partners can take a little bit of fun out of jiu-jitsu. You know, so maybe you be more selective with who you're rolling with to make it fun again.
Yeah.
But,
and I think that's one of the reasons I like the sport so much too, is like you said, training partners. The training partners are all my buddies. It's I always joke that we're a social club where a little bit of jiu-jitsu breaks out.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's great to have good training partners, and you actually look forward to coming to see them. But even without training partners, I could train with complete strangers and just have a blast.
Yeah. If someone,
everybody's different, but like you said, you got to get to find out what's the crux of the problem. Hey, is there something that we could do a little bit different, to get that smile on your face?
Yeah, I tell most people that come in, who I invite, that actually show up, or I think they're going to show up. Give it a try. Give it a couple months at least, and I'll try to go with the first class that they come in and try to support them as much as I can, but. It might not be real fun the first couple classes or even the first month, but you just give it a try and see if it fits you. And and if it does, like it does me, it's a lot of fun and you get a lot out of it. And if it's not fun for you, it probably sucks because it is miserable. Like a lot of the stuff is uncomfortable. A lot of it is it's like what oh man, this is happening. But in reality, it's a lot of fun. So, but if you can't have fun with it, it does suck.
If you can't have fun with it, and not everybody's going to enjoy the sport.
Yeah.
Some of us don't like football. Some of us don't like basketball. Some of us don't like golf. We're all different. Not everybody's going to enjoy the sport.
Yeah. So I kind of give them a little out. Like they're not going to offend me if they don't like it. So come on in and give it a shot and see if you like it.
Yeah, we'll still be friends, but you're going to get choked out a lot more if you don't train, because you won't know how to defend my chokes I sneak up behind you. When
I'm at your place of business there, Gary.
Yeah, that actually didn't work.
So to get back to the brushing the teeth article, it is on the skirt. Skirt on the mat. Yeah, website there on the blog. A lot of good articles there. We've had a couple of hers before. And,
we'll put a link
fun.
to it.
Yeah,
and check that blog out. There's a lot of other great articles on there too. Definitely will entertain you.
Yeah, anytime you could take something that takes a little bit of your willpower that is hard for you to do and make that a habit, is going to be a good idea for you to have that take less of your willpower in your day-to-day event. Well, Gary, it's time to get on, I think, with our interview of the week here.
Yep.
He is the most interesting grappler in the world.
His rear naked choke is so potent that opponents have been known to disrobe upon contact. When he was a kid, he would always compete in the adult division. Now that he is an adult, he is considering making a run at the kids title. He signed up for a sumo wrestling match. The group Salt and Pepper showed up without warning to sing their song, Push It. He not only pushed it, he pushed it real good.
I don't always listen to podcasts, but when I do, I prefer the BJJ Brick podcast. Stay sweaty, my friends.
All right, my friends, it's my pleasure to bring PJ Waicus to the BJJ Brick podcast. PJ, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm happy to have you here, and you've got a story that I think will help out listeners and maybe motivate some people to train and maybe get past some things that they might be going through in their life as well. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I'm a 44-year-old husband of almost 17 years, and I have two kids, 14 and 12. I'm a purple belt under Professor Steve Bongiorno at South Jersey Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which is in the southeastern part of New Jersey, in Berlin, New Jersey, near Philadelphia. We're part of the Ricardo Almeida Association. Professor Bongiorno is one of Ricardo's very first black belts. So and I've been training there for about just over 5 years now.
Cool. What got you into training?
Well, I had an interest growing up as a kid in martial arts. I guess in the 70s and 80s, it was kind of karate was the big thing. My parents, for whatever reason, didn't think it was necessarily something they wanted me to pursue. So I played some different sports, and so the only combat sport I'd ever taken part in as a child was wrestling for a few years. However, I grew up as a swimmer, and I wound up playing water polo in college, which is, while not a combat sport, it's definitely very much a contact sport. And there's actually a lot of grappling, if you will, and grips, and even pummeling and that kind of stuff that goes on under the water that not everybody sees. So I was absolutely very used to the physical aspect of athletics and that sort of thing. And I saw the first few UFCs a couple of years after they took place. It was probably the mid-90s. And while I was really impressed by what I saw from Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, I had an initial desire to learn how to strike. And at the time, the striking martial arts were still a little more popular, I think. So I started doing some Taekwondo in the late 90s. I was about 28. So I came late to martial arts in general. But my instructor, Carl Mascarenhas, was very much in favor of being proficient or knowledgeable, at least in all different martial arts, including some basic ground fighting. So I was exposed to traditional Taekwondo, boxing, kickboxing, and some basic no-gi grappling. I did that for a few years, took a few years off when my kids were young, and I realized how much I missed just training, and I decided that grappling was really what I wanted to go and immerse myself in, not only because of how effective it is, but it's getting into my later 30s, and frankly, I really was kind of sick of getting hit in the face. So I was commuting up to New York City at the time and staying there a few nights a week. So I was training a little bit here and there in no-gi, just paying a mat fee at Marcelo Garcia's on any nights that I was able to train. And at that point, while I was doing that, I started looking at a more permanent home, jiu-jitsu home, that is, for me in my part of New Jersey. And I was very fortunate to find a great school. It's only 5 miles or so from my house. And I started there in 2010 and started training in the gi at that time. So I didn't know any collar chokes or even how to best grip somebody's gi when I first started. I really hadn't ever worn a gi. So that was interesting.
So what do you remember what age you were when you actually started Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu?
Yeah, so I was 39, I guess, when I started what I consider to be jiu-jitsu training, which is formal, real jiu-jitsu with a black belt instructor. I was 39. Yeah. And
you were transitioning from striking because it was kind of, like you said, you were tired of getting hit in the face.
Yeah, exactly.
So do you remember what it was like your first month as a 39-year-old hitting the mats?
Yes, it was very challenging because the gripping was not something I was used to, and they did have no-gi, we do no-gi training too, and so I was doing that also, and I like doing that, but it took me a while to warm up to the gi. It was probably about a year, but it was tough just being 39, and while I was still and still do feel really great, it's very noticeable when you've got a lot of guys who are not only more experienced in jiu-jitsu, but are in their 20s, can train a lot, and it was humbling, but I expected that, so I was not surprised. But I immediately really took to it. I knew that I was going to do this for as long as I could, and that's still my goal.
Do you think that there were any advantages having the obviously starting earlier is better, but like the 39 the way you trained versus if you would have started when you were like 29 or 19?
Yeah, I tell you what, I refer to them as kids, even though they're not kids. But the guys who are in their early 20s and are already, like I train with a guy who's 20, awesome kid, Chris Wilson. He's a purple belt. We've been kind of getting promoted together, and God, he started prior to age 16, and I just like, wow, if he could only really appreciate what he's got, and I would love to be able to go back and do that all over again. But, but I'm making up for what I can now. So it's tough. I mean, but we have guys of all ages. We've got people that are older than I am, not too many, but and then we've got a lot of guys in their 30s, and people have all different kinds of life situations. So it's different types of jobs, and so it is a good mix, and ultimately I'm okay with with what happens there, because it's all about the training for me.
Could you describe your style of jiu-jitsu, what you like to do on the mat?
Sure. So I really like to mix it up. I was initially more comfortable on top because we were generally learning that when I was doing sort of what I consider to be kind of mixed martial arts training, striking and takedowns and so forth. But about midway through blue belt, and I spent about 3 years of blue belt. About midway through there, my professor said he wanted me to spend some time focusing on utilizing what he referred to as my natural gifts, to sweep and submit people off my back. And by natural gifts, he meant, he explained body types. So I'm tall, about 6'5", and rather lean at just under 200 pounds, and have some decent flexibility for more so, I think, than your average person. So I really embraced that, and I really love to play different kinds of guards, but I do like to mix it up. I want to be proficient in both, and I enjoy doing both, and there's all different kinds of great things that you can do from any position. So, but I like to roll smooth and try different things. I generally find that I'm somewhat methodical and kind of deliberate in what I do in any given situation. So I like to feel that I'm relaxed when I train, and there are times when it even may seem like slow motion jiu-jitsu, but that's how I'm best able to stay calm and breathe. And frankly, I think that's how I'm able to make a full 30 minutes or even more of constant matches over and over again, and feel really good when I'm done, especially at this age.
Could you kind of tell me how you use your height and body type, specifically, like what techniques you kind of favor more than somebody who was a little bit shorter or stockier that would do?
Yeah, absolutely. And so one, I think, is big is with all the different sizes and body types of people that anybody who trains consistently will roll with. It's very easy for me to lock up a full guard and actually close the full guard, because it's interesting to see guys who are much shorter than I am, and their legs don't even reach all the way around some people. So in terms of a closed guard, that's definitely something. Also, in terms of length, it's I think it's an advantage in things such as actually clinching and getting arm triangles. So a lot of times I can actually put my hand onto my other arm's bicep without even really having to kind of keep grinding and positioning. And the longer legs definitely help with keeping distance, especially in half guard, when you've got guys who are much heavier kind of crashing down on you. And in playing on the top game, I think it makes it, while it is a lot of appendages to grab, it also helps create some distance when doing some different types of guard passing and just leverage, I think. And now, there are areas where it's not as where it almost is harder to do things. Like, it's not as easy for me to maybe get a hook in somewhere because my leg is longer. But for the most part, I like to try to utilize that distance game and stretching people out.
Sounds like you've gone through a process of discovering like what jiu-jitsu works best for you, and you just keep running with that. Absolutely, and I really believe that saying that jiu-jitsu is really for everyone, and in general there are a lot of smaller guys that train jiu-jitsu. If you look at kind of like what you would consider an average, that we're the
sweet spot of where, in terms of the population, a lot of them are kind of smaller. So I absolutely think that anybody can find a style that is best for them. So.
Yeah, there's advantages to being tall, and there's advantages, I think, to being short as well. I think some of the shorter grapplers are just so hard to finish sometimes. It's hard to get really control their limbs as well, and they're harder to take down. And
yeah, absolutely. And it's generally the smaller guys are what they maybe give up in weight and strength. In general, they make up in speed and movement. A lot of times I find that it's easier to train with somebody who's a little bigger because they might not move as fast, whereas I've got to constantly work, especially when somebody's trying to pass my guard. I feel like it's nonstop with the smaller guys, and so it's a challenge, in that way, definitely.
Yeah. Could you tell me a little bit about yourself off the mat?
Sure. So, I have a real job. Unfortunately, I'm not in a position where I can train full time. Although I would definitely do that if I could. So I work. I have an office job. I sit behind a desk. I'm a finance manager, and nothing terribly exciting. So I come home at night, and if I'm able to do my training, it's generally 2 nights a week, and then once on the weekend. I do that, and so like I said, I'm a father. I have 2 kids. I have a son who's 14. His name's Jackson, and I have a daughter who's 12. Her name's Darcy, and my wife is Julie. And my kids both have a somewhat rare genetic syndrome called Angelman Syndrome, and so they're both, they're 2.5 years apart, and they both have Angelman Syndrome.
If somebody hasn't heard that the name of Angelman Syndrome, could you describe it for me?
Sure. So, it's considered a neurogenetic disorder. It occurs in 1 in about 15,000 births. The characteristics generally are developmental delay, lack of speech. There's seizure activity that general epilepsy that comes for many of those individuals, and then walking and balance disorders. It's very often misdiagnosed as cerebral palsy or autism because it's just not well known. I think everybody at least has heard of autism, probably has a decent idea of what it encompasses, even if they don't necessarily know somebody with it, but it's generally not as well known, Angelman syndrome. So, but they're very happy individuals. They laugh. They're often smiling, and so it can be very different from some of the other disabilities where individuals can become more withdrawn.
How did you guys find out that your kids had Angelman syndrome?
So we found out when my son was just right before his 2nd birthday, and it was basically he was showing some delays, even just regular milestones for children, such as sitting up, crawling, walking, and we had been getting him therapy, but nobody really had said to us, maybe go get some more extensive testing, until we finally saw a neurologist who said you might want to go to a genetics facility and get him tested. So we did that. They came back and said, he has this thing called Angelman syndrome, and we said, wow, what's that? And started researching. And in that same meeting, they said, well, when it is passed on, or when it does occur, it's passed on by the mother's genes. And they said there's a very, very rare possibility that, the mother can be a carrier, which means that while they don't have Angelman syndrome themselves, they have some sort of mutation that can be passed on. Whereas normally if the woman is not a carrier, the mother's not a carrier, it would just be a fluke of some sort when a child is conceived. So we said, wow, okay, so they tested my wife, which is basically they take blood and it takes 4 to 6 weeks or maybe even 8 weeks to come back. And they said, well, you're a carrier, and you have a theoretical 50-50 chance of any child that you bear will have Angelman syndrome. And she was 4 months pregnant at that time with her daughter.
Wow.
So, yeah, it was absolutely devastating. Looking back on it, it was, I'll admit there were definitely, regrets where, we were saying, wow, we wish she wasn't pregnant, obviously, at the time, if we had known that. But, knowing my daughter now and having her, it's very, very, it's impossible, actually, to imagine life without her. So it was just a very, very, it's really like, it's like getting just, smacked, and you all of a sudden have, a major, major life change.
Well, so what? I imagine it's completely different than anything you had imagined before you had kids. But what challenges are associated with raising multiple special needs children?
Well, I think the big thing is it's a very different lifestyle. However, so just as parents who have typical developing kids is what we kind of refer. We don't necessarily. I mean, people generally don't say normal kids, although I tend to use that sometimes. But so a typical developing kid, we can't appreciate their challenges, just like they're not able to appreciate ours. I mean, I have a brother-in-law who has 4 kids, and we have neighbors who are regular, typically developing kids, and we don't. The challenges we don't have are things like the drama that goes on with kids in school and friends, or getting in with the wrong crowd, or the cyberbullying or that kind of thing. So our challenges are different, but it's tough. It's stressful. They don't sleep well, so we generally just kind of have grown accustomed to sleeping less than probably you would with a typical 14 and 12-year-old who probably could sit in their room and do whatever they want, and you just kind of do your thing and go to sleep. And but they need constant monitoring and supervision. One thing we are very fortunate about is that they're both. So Angelman syndrome is a very broad spectrum. There are some who are very severely affected, much more than others. My wife and I consider ourselves to be very lucky. Jackson and Darcy they do very well. There are things that they can do that, unfortunately, we see many others who just aren't capable of at that point in their life. And there are kids in wheelchairs, and they just haven't developed the balance or the muscle tone to walk on their own. But we have kids who are able-bodied for the most part. They're happy and loving. They're incredibly sociable, affectionate. They interact and communicate. So even though they don't have verbal abilities, which is really a challenge, because there are times where people, even us, there are times where we're not sure exactly what they want or need. So when they're sick, we're not sure exactly what the problem is. We have to kind of start just taking a process to kind of figure out what it is. But so while they lack that verbal ability, they do have excellent receptive ability. So they know everything that is being said to them, or anything they hear, even. So they'll pick up on things that people say, and you don't even know that they're really paying attention. But so they understand everything that you say to them, and their receptive ability is very good. I know there's been multiple studies about communication in general and how much is verbal versus nonverbal, and they say that a vast majority is consisting of body language, facial expressions, the tone of the voice, and a small percentage of the actual words. And our kids are very expressive in the way they non-verbally communicate. So we're lucky.
What is the Angelman syndrome community like? Is there much of a community there and support?
Yes, it's a very, very tight community, actually. So it's amazing how many people we've met, and this is worldwide even. And a lot of that is, social media now. It's very easy to connect with people. But we've been going to, every 2 years, there's a conference that's held by the Angelman Syndrome Foundation, which is a nonprofit organization here in the U.S. And they do it in different cities in the U.S. every 2 years. And I think we've only missed one since my daughter was diagnosed in 2003. So we've been to a lot, and we see the same people over and over. And while we don't necessarily go to, and not that we don't get anything out of the talks and the speakers, for us it's more of a social and support aspect. So there are people we only see every 2 years, and their kids, we see pictures, and then we don't get to meet their kids until the next conference. And our kids love to interact with other people, and so for us, it's just a very big community. We have there's a decent amount of people that are local in my area, and what I mean by local is within a hour, 2 hour radius, even some that are very close. But and we do things like every year, maybe we have a cookout or something so that families can get together, and it's very good because we face similar challenges. I think of that small group, we're the local group. We're the only ones with more than one child. But at the national conferences, the biannual conferences, we do know a handful of other families that are where the mother is a carrier as well. So,
well, it sounds like you have some support with the community there, and it's a tight-knit group.
Absolutely.
How has the doing jiu-jitsu and the jiu-jitsu community affected you and what you're doing?
So it's a lot of things. One is fitness, just in general. I mean, it's clear that exercise or doing something active, especially keeping your mind active, which I think is big with jiu-jitsu, is a big help. I was also diagnosed in 2007 with bipolar disorder, which has its whole own set of challenges. And, for me, the fitness aspect and the mental aspect of jiu-jitsu is very stimulating. I really don't like running or lifting weights. I find that they're kind of boring. Your mind wanders, and you don't necessarily get as much of a social aspect of it. Having a full-time job and being a father means that, in general, anybody with kids or anybody with just, a life has necessarily a limited amount of time to do the things, that you want to do. And that's definitely true for me. Anything that I want to be doing that doesn't involve my family is limited time. So, the me time, I guess as you call it, is, I want to be spending training. So really it's kind of therapeutic for me. I'm really in my happy place, I guess you could say, when I'm training. Any of the issues that I have get put on hold. It really is like you step onto the mat, and it's kind of like I'm in this other, kind of place, just in terms of it's a time for me to not worry about the other stuff. And I can enjoy every aspect of it, including the social and the community aspect. And I get really good support from, my training partners and my instructors as well. We know each other's families. I bring my kids up to the school to, my wife will bring them up maybe to watch me train, and they clown around with some of the other guys or my professor or my coaches. And it really helps me really stay sane, if you will. And there are ups and downs that are very natural with progressing in jiu-jitsu, especially getting older. I mean, it can be very, I'm cognizant of the fact that I'm in my mid-40s. I don't necessarily heal the way I used to or have as much speed, but I'm very thankful that I'm able to do what I can, especially just having a different kind of family situation. I joke that at some point I'm going to hit the wall. I'm still kind of holding up, at least in terms of having some hair and not being gray yet. But it's only a matter of time. But I'm really just kind of I like to do well. I've been athletic my whole life. I definitely don't like to lose at anything I do, but I don't see training as winning or losing. So But it is hard for somebody who's used to things somewhat coming easily to them to realize that, it's not coming as easily anymore, because of just age and by the time I train, it's 7:00 at night on many, during the week, and I'm up at 5, so I might not have as much energy as I did if I was doing that 10 years ago, but I'm just glad that I can get there and do it. And I still, I still see progress constantly, even if it's only a little. So the peaks and valleys are a good thing. It makes the other things in life seem not such a big deal.
So. You mentioned you have bipolar disorder. What are some of the things that people may believe about bipolar disorder that may not be true for you, or they just may be wrong about?
Yeah, it's a very, it's one of those things where there is a broad spectrum.
Yeah,
I'm pretty fortunate in that I haven't had any. It hasn't, and I don't know if you just want to say severity, but there are people that have different kinds of, and it can be really any type of psychiatric issue that can be very affected in terms of even just being able to function properly. And I'm fortunate that I'm able to really function and thrive. I think with the support of family and friends. But it's very hard, especially because, with kids with special needs, it can be downright depressing. It really can. And anybody who says that that's not true is lying. So, there are the people in the kind of the special needs parents who, some of them, take it so hard that they just can't see any positive anywhere. There's the people who I think just kind of maybe choose not to think about it and maybe don't really even accept it. And then there's where I consider kind of like, my wife and I, which is we just kind of accept it and we realize there's going to be ups and downs. And, you try to do more of the thinking, a positive mindset versus a negative. Now I really have had times in my life where things, seem more, I'm maybe you could say like a glass half empty versus a glass half full. And, but I think just being active and doing something that really, really like to do, which is train Jiu-Jitsu, is it allows me to be, I'm just much more of a positive person. Realistically, I already have maybe 4 or 5 things that could, that cause stress and could cause me to lose sleep at night. And I'm not going to add anything else unless it's really, really worth it. So, it's a constant challenge, but, many things in life, don't have to be sacrificed because of, having something like bipolar. And, but it's something that, I have to accept. There is a stigma. I think it's not very easily, kind of, I guess, talked about by people. I personally don't have a problem talking about it. Anybody who thinks that that's kind of like that it's a weakness or it's not a real issue, really doesn't know what they're talking about. And I can understand if they have never been through it or they don't know anybody who has that kind of thing. But for me, it's almost as if I have a friend who's also bipolar, and I've told her, I said, in a way, I think that we're almost kind of stronger because it's not like there's that people who don't have that kind of disorder just they roll with things a little easier, and we don't necessarily have that luxury. So sometimes it's more of a struggle to deal with something that is a challenge. But it's definitely something that takes support, and it starts with family, definitely.
It sounds like you have a lot of support from your wife. She's you're such a busy guy. You've got a lot on your plate with home, and you're still able to get on the mat several times a week.
Yeah, she's an incredible mother, and she's very understanding and patient. Just dealing with me for the past, almost 20 years now. But I'm no prize, but it's but she does really whatever she can so that I can get the time that I'm able to realistically to train. And I think we work well as a team. I'm not, if I was to come home and say, hey, I think I'm going to train, 6 days a week now instead of, 3 or 4 or 2, just depending on the week. I mean, that's not realistic because, one is I've got, many other priorities that I need to do, especially, our kids have activities and so forth. And, 3, it's like, I think that I need a rest every other day anyway, but she really does what she can. And she understands that it's, that I have discovered something that really is really something that I like, I'm into. It's good for me. She says that since I really started training consistently that I just seem to have a much better, attitude and mindset. And it's true. I mean, it's just one of those things that I need to continue to stay active, and jiu-jitsu is the way I like to do that. And she supports and understands that. So yeah, I'm very lucky in that regard.
You think that since you started training, you've had a better mindset or attitude. Is that because you're just getting is it just the fitness aspect of it, or is it the little escape that you get while you're on the mat, you can't think about anything else, or is it the community of jiu-jitsu, you're with some friends, or what about jiu-jitsu is helping you like that with that?
So I would say all of the above plus some additional things. So, it's, I would say almost the smallest part of it is fitness. It's a small part, but it's an important part.
Yeah.
It definitely is nice to be active. It helps you stay in shape. It helps you just feel better. And when you feel better, getting only 4 hours of sleep, on one night, let's say, is not as big a deal, I guess. Then there's just the community and the friendships that you make out of that is really important. And, that's not only the people that I train with, but, I just, we'll run into people here and there who I don't even know, but, it's just kind of like that. And I think anybody who trains, if you see somebody with a shirt or something and, it becomes a conversation, kind of like, where do you train? What do you, what do you like to do? Who do you like to watch? And it really is I know, Nick Gregoriadis talks about he calls his association the Jiu-Jitsu Brotherhood, and I think that is a pretty good, pretty fitting way to describe that. And then also it's just the constant challenge, and you are seeing progress, and you're dealing with plateaus, and you're dealing with valleys, peaks and valleys, and everywhere in between. And in dealing with that, it's good to be out of your comfort zone. I'm a firm believer that if you're not willing to step out of your comfort zone, and this is in anything, work, some sort of other professional life, sports, whatever, you're not really going to reach your potential in anything. And I think that people should look to do that so that it becomes a lot more comfortable to be in an area where you're not necessarily, always doing something so it becomes routine. So, there's so many, I always say, well, when people say, well, what is jiu-jitsu and how is it different from other martial arts is, now I will talk for hours about that. But one of the things that I do say is that, there's so many more techniques, and, and they'll say, oh, well, I knew somebody who got a black belt in karate in 3 years. And, and I have to explain, well, there's, you only have, I guess what they call 8 weapons in striking martial arts, hands, elbows, knees, and shins or feet. I said there's literally thousands of techniques, and it would become a black belt takes years and years, and, it's not just becoming, it's not just learning techniques, it's becoming proficient in them. And, there's that whole aspect of, I'm going to really work on my top game. I'm going to really work on my mount chokes or, attacking from from side control. So you do that for a few weeks, and then you realize that, wow, my triangles from guard really suck now because I haven't done them for a while. And it's just, it's like, God, I'm constantly finding, that kind of thing. And I sometimes walk into class and I'm like, God, there's so many things I want to work on right now. And I'm definitely somebody that I like to get to what I'm thinking about. And I just have to kind of step back and say, all right, well, this is what is being taught, this week. So, and, I need to work on this. So that's what I'm going to do. And then it changes from week to week, or during open mats, maybe I'll kind of pick something and try to do it. But that, I think that just progression and that dealing with setbacks and commitment. I think it really takes a commitment. It's not something that you can do once a week, every 2 weeks or something, and really expect to get what you can out of it, if you train consistently. And that's good. I mean, I know there's people who say I'd be out at the bars if I wasn't training, 4 times a week or whatever. And it's true. I mean, I see guys who are younger who, other people they know are, in the bar, which is 2 doors down from where our academy is. And, we like to joke, wow, those guys think they're having fun, and they have no idea. So.
Yeah. So how do you view Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? Like the community, the sport, the martial art, how does it, how do you view that?
It's unique in that, and while there are some other martial arts that definitely, Jiu-Jitsu, I think, is really while it's its own animal, it does have aspects of other martial arts, definitely, judo, wrestling, sambo, all that kind of stuff. But Jiu-Jitsu is, I think it's, there's a big focus. I think the really good instructors really focus on how important it is to grow personally as well as just to have good technique. And, there are a lot of instructors, as absolutely, there are people who, may not have all kinds of competition medals or something, but their technique is solid and they're excellent instructors. And not even just instructors from a technique point of view, but even just, in terms of, taking the right attitude, mindset, the different challenges that they've had growing up and being humble, but also, being friendly and being accommodating. I mean, I love to, when we get new people that come in, I love to train with new people, and especially if it's somebody who's brand new, because I want to be somebody, and I like being somebody that people are going to want to train with. Not somebody that they have to be worried about because I'm out of control or I don't let go of submissions or or being an asshole or whatever. But it's and I think that's, you do find that people are accommodating like that when you go to some different schools. There's going to be people that you don't want to roll with here and there anywhere you go, but that's just like anybody who thinks that they're going to love everybody they work with on a daily basis is not realistic, right? So, but so my professor Bongiorno says, very often, he says, you can learn something from everybody that you train with, and just because you can do something doesn't mean that you always should. The last thing I want is for, a good person who's respectful, wants to learn, wants to just, better themselves, for them to come into a school as a brand new white belt and get, unnecessarily beat on and then quit, because, that could be somebody that becomes very good and becomes a good, training partner, a good practitioner with the proper training, which I think anybody really can do. And I absolutely understand how difficult it is for somebody to just walk in the door of a school, not only the first time, but the second, third, maybe even for a year. It gets hard because they feel like they're not as good as others. And I think that's a common thing in the jiu-jitsu community. I was talking with a friend of mine who trains, and I said I had met a guy, and I said, he might, on the outside, he kind of maybe looked like somebody who could be kind of a douche, and but he wasn't. I said he was a super nice guy, and he goes, yeah, most people who do jiu-jitsu are kind of that. They're not real douchey, and now on the flip side, if somebody comes in and is a jerk off, where they might hurt somebody, I'm more than happy to play the role of putting somebody in their place, and if I'm not able to physically or whatever, there's plenty of people just in that community that can. And I think people learn right away that you're not just going to come in and muscle people, and you're going to get humbled. And the people that can't accept that for whatever reason are the people who only last. If I had a dime for every time somebody came in who I saw for a month and then never saw him again, I'm sure you see it all the time. It's a revolving door, and the people who don't make it a lot of times are the people that just can't deal with that adversity, I think.
Yeah, I'm thinking back to when you first started jiu-jitsu. You were 39, you walked in there and you're trying it out. If you had like two guys you rolled with that day that were really rough on you and treated you poorly, how that would have affected whether you stuck with it and whether you've had this in your life right now.
Yeah, and I do think about that. And as I look back, there were some people here and there that are definitely, are going to go at you harder than others.
Yeah.
But, I don't feel like anybody was unnecessarily, doing anything. Part of it also, I think, is, I remember when I got my purple belt, somebody said, I said to somebody, now, really, you really kind of get a target on your back, and he said to me, he said, well, he's like, you probably for maybe the wrong reasons have had a target on your back from the beginning, probably, right? And I thought about it, and I was like, well, I'm a taller guy, rolling with a lot of smaller guys who have better technique, and I don't think I necessarily looked 39 at the time, and so maybe it was just kind of one of those things where it's, when you see somebody and it's, I'm going to have to go at them hard or whatever, for whatever reason. And I feel that way, but I like that, but again, I think that people want to train with me because I'm not, going to do anything unnecessary, as long as they're willing to do the same. So, but I think about all the time, I've got some training partners who are really, really good, and you just think about, God, if they got beat on and never, and they never got to this point, or they went somewhere else, we now have one less really, really good training partner, and that's important. We don't want, we want the school to thrive. We want, every school wants people to come in and have a good experience, and then grow and become good themselves, and then help the next, new crop of people that are constantly coming in. So it's a big part of it. And being a humbling sport, some people, I think, again, just can't, even if somebody's being super respectful and they get tapped, they just can't, they can't accept that. And those people, I don't think you're ever going to convince, as much as you try to kind of tell them that you just have to stick with it, especially the first few years. I think there's just some people that are, they're not going to be able to continue to do that. But the people who, for the most part, being kind and being a good training partner and, and getting what you can out of training with those people goes a long way.
So how it sounds like you have a great community there and a great gym that you're training with. How is that like a church to you almost?
Yeah, it's it really is kind of like my that's like the sanctuary, if you will, kind of. It's if I think about, so for instance, if my wife says, oh, by the way, next Friday night we have to, we're going to this thing or whatever, and my first thought is, okay, well, I don't want to get home too late because I like to get up kind of early, and training starts at 10 or 10:30. So for me, it's kind of like that. So my wife goes to church, and I guess and what she gets out of that is a the community aspect of it, definitely, as well as just kind of a place to, get her mind right and just get what she can out of just going through that process. For me, it's like that. I mean, it's kind of the equivalent. I mean, I go into, to a training session, and it's like that reprieve, and it's kind of like that sanctuary, and the people are like the kind of the equivalent of like a congregation, you could say. And it's just very comfortable, and honestly, I mean, I could even use the word safe. And what I mean by that is just, I'm not really concerned if somebody, completely wrecks me for 5 minutes straight. I look for the little victories, if you will. I mean, the first thing that comes to mind actually is, so I trained with a black belt. Somebody, not my instructor, but somebody else. It was probably a year ago, I guess, is when this happened. And smaller than I am, a little bit smaller, but I mean, I got destroyed, and and in a good way, not in a bad way.
Yeah.
But for me, it was okay. So when he passed my guard and got mount, one of the many times happened during that 6-minute roll was, he went for a cross choke, Audrey Gracie type cross choke, and I stayed calm. I was able to actually bridge and move back into, to be on top, to be in his guard, and kept posture so that I didn't have to tap from the choke. And to me, it's like, okay, great. It doesn't matter that within the next, minute I got, swept or I got submitted in a different way. To me, it's like, okay, great. I actually used something that I learned there. People think that when they get destroyed by somebody, they're not necessarily, it was maybe a waste, or they're not necessarily learning. And I think as people train with different levels, and especially with people who are better than they are, they come to appreciate that. So it's that's a key aspect for me.
Yeah, I enjoy getting beat up by somebody. I always, if anything, I learn to respect certain moves a little bit more, and it puts a little bit of desire to, if somebody does some cross collar choke on me, I'll want to do that move a little bit better. Like, oh, that's a good move, Yeah.
And yeah, absolutely. It's and everybody brings a set of challenges. I'm probably the second tallest person that I train with. There's a guy who's about 6'8", 6'9", roughly the same weight, and God, I have an appreciation for what some people probably find with when I'm able to use my height to do certain things with them. So some techniques that work on most people aren't going to work on him, or are not going to be nearly as successful over time. Like, let's say 8 out of 10 times, you're not going to be able to do that. So it's where you get people who are heavier, where you're just not going to be able to get the appropriate leverage, or you just you haven't become proficient enough in something where you can get that leverage yet on those people. So it's good. I mean, it's a learning. And yeah, I mean, absolutely, like you said, I mean, getting beat on by somebody who's better really does make you appreciate it. It's like, wow, that's such a basic move, and it worked, really well on me. It's like, wow, if your first thought is, geez, God, I definitely need to work on that. I suck, at that, but it's just that, that different level here and there, and it doesn't even have to be somebody who's a higher rank. There's certain people who are just very good at certain things. From whatever level they're at. Yeah,
absolutely. PJ, if you could go back in time and give yourself some advice when you're first starting out, what would you say?
Starting out with jiu-jitsu?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think one is, there's countless things. I think the big things are, one is to not be so, I'm generally kind of hard on myself. I always have been. I like to push myself, and I would definitely say to myself just to, to really enjoy jiu-jitsu for everything that it has, and, enjoy getting submitted, enjoy getting, beat up by somebody, enjoy not being able to pass the 16-year-old's guard who's been training for 5 years. It's everything is in stride, and it's I've really come to appreciate that it is a marathon, not a sprint. And I really was big on just training as much as I could. And while that is important, at my age when I started and my age now, it's there's that saying that I want to be able to train 2 or 3 days a week for the next. I mean, if I'm fortunate enough to live another 50 years, that's what I want to do. I don't want to train 5 or 6 times a week and do that constantly, and then be so broken that I have to take years off, or I get some sort of injury that God forbid. I mean, where I'm not able to train at all. I mean, I've seen that happen. So that's definitely something, is really just appreciate it for what it is. I've never been like somebody that's just kind of constantly thinking about promotions or whatever. I mean, it's great to be shown progress and to be and to get the stripes or the belts for that, but people absolutely need to understand that it takes a long time. It takes some people longer than others, and there's different expectations of people. So there's the expectation that an instructor might have for a guy who's 22 and is able to train 6 times a week and is picking up things really fast is but that doesn't make them automatically a brown belt in 2 years. Whereas you may have a brown belt who's 20 years older than that person is, but they just have so much more of an appreciation and understanding of the way techniques work, and maybe the way that you have to manipulate the body to get certain responses. And that's something that it just took me a little while to realize. So those, I think, are big lessons.
Yeah.
But,
If I want to, this may be a little bit harder question, or just I don't know. If you can go back and tell yourself some advice or something, back when your son was diagnosed with Angelman Syndrome, and you found out that your unborn child had a 50-50 chance. Do you have anything you could say to yourself back then that would be like somebody facing this tremendous challenge and stress? What would you say?
Yeah, and it's interesting because as I've gotten to meet people who are in similar positions, and it doesn't necessarily have to be somebody who's got a newborn or got a pregnant spouse with the possibility of one coming, but even just people who are so devastated by, and everybody I think is devastated to some degree with news like that you just your first child or any child that you have has a disability, and then on top of that, if you've got one with a possibility on the way, and I've gotten a chance to meet a lot of those people in getting to know people through the Angelman Syndrome Foundation. Just I know you become the whole special needs community, not just Angelman Syndrome, is pretty tight knit, I think, in general. So in just having conversations with people, I can see how people struggle with that. And the first thing I say to them, and again, if I didn't understand this at the time, and I don't know that there's any way you can, but I hope that hearing it from somebody who's been there at least helps a little bit. But I'll tell fathers especially is you've got a lot of things that are stressful. So you generally, if they're the ones that are working full time, they're not getting the chance to spend as much time with their kids, and their wives are really getting hammered with a lot of the stress during the day, let's say. And so I will tell guys, look, I said, you guys have to be a team, and you have to give your wife time to do things that she wants to do so that she can get out of the house or whatever. And but you need to do things that are good for you as well. So if there's something that they like to do that's not destructive to themselves or anybody else, then you need to negotiate, if you will, time with your spouse. The other thing I would say is I always had a problem with, I'm constantly thinking, 10, 20, 30 years down the road, and that's the only thing I was thinking of at that time. I kept saying, I just remember saying to myself, at 33 or whatever it was, I never really, had thought about grandkids, but it's devastating to think that I'll never have any, at some point. And God, that's so far away that that's definitely not what I should have been worrying about. I should have been thinking more of like, what's going on now and what are the next couple of years maybe that we're looking at. So that, and then just that time really does make a difference and does heal in many ways. It's definitely it's equivalent to the feeling of a loss, but there are so many good things too that come out of that, and really, it's like they can't be afraid to take their kids out and get the staring and be asked questions, or maybe somebody makes an off comment here or there. It's going to happen, and I think that's part of the reason why people are maybe they don't go out with the kids. They're I don't want to say that they're embarrassed by them, but they just can't deal with that. And it's just something that will get better. It gets easier, and you just have to almost embrace it in a way. So.
Wow, that's I think you gave a lot of advice there in that answer, from anywhere from being a teammate with your spouse and working together and giving them their support they need to pursue things they want to pursue, to how to deal with the public in certain instances. That's a lot of stuff there. Thank you. It's pretty. Yeah, it can be pretty intense and pretty deep at times, but it is something that a lot of people deal with. And I live in an area where there are a lot of special needs individuals, and maybe it's just because the area is very overpopulated, or maybe it's just because I don't know, maybe the environment in New Jersey is not real good. And that's another fortunate thing. If I talk to people that are in our area, is God, you've got so many resources that people are moving to our area from out of state because of the services that you can get where we are. Wow.
We know people we have some friends who are out in Nebraska, and it's like, God, there isn't as much out there in terms of availability. I mean, we have some of the best hospitals, that are within a couple hours, or not even, between Philadelphia and New York. So there are a lot of resources out there. So definitely, I also, one other thing I tell people, and would definitely tell myself if I were to go back, is that you have to utilize people around you, because you're not going to be able to just kind of take the weight on yourself and be okay. It's hard because men like to do that, I think, but I think the sooner that people understand that, who are in a situation, the sooner they're going to be able to start to make headway.
Yeah. We've heard a lot of great information from you today. Could you kind of just tell us some people or some things that might be supporting you, from your coaches to anything else?
Sure. So definitely, South Jersey Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in Berlin, their site is sjbjj.com. Professor Steve Bongiorno, my teammates, Coach Jay Regalbuto. The Angelman Syndrome Foundation, it's Angelman, so it's spelled just like angel, like guy with wings, MAN.org. They're a nonprofit. Their mission is to advance and promote the awareness and treatment. They look to do that through education, research, support of AS individuals, Angelman Syndrome individuals. The LARC School, where my kids go in New Jersey, it's LARC with a C, LARC.org. And then my wife, Julie, definitely is definitely understanding, and the reason why I'm able to continue to train and I think continue to progress is that we are a team, like you pointed out.
Yeah. If somebody wants to get a hold of you, maybe ask you some questions, how could they do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So Facebook is great, just PJ Waicus. The picture that I have on there is of me with my son. We're both redheads, so it's pretty noticeable. And we actually have a Facebook page. It's called Voices for Angels, and it's just noted as being dedicated in awareness to Angelman Syndrome and to our kids. My profile is open for people to see and to message me or just post. I love talking to people about that kind of stuff.
Well, cool, and I appreciate that you're open and willing to help other people. That's always admirable.
Yeah, definitely. It's a lot of fun, actually.
Well, thanks for hopping on here with me and sharing your story. I'm sure you helped. Everybody has different struggles in life, but I think somebody could relate to something that they've felt or that they've gone through, and maybe not as significant or maybe just different. But you're still out there training. You're getting a lot from it, and you're using both the Jiu-Jitsu community and the Angelman community for support, and you're getting through your own personal struggles, and it looks like you're doing very well.
Yeah, and I really appreciate this opportunity. It's always great to get awareness out, and just for people to kind of to be okay with talking about it. It's not the most comfortable thing, but for many people, but I think it's important because it does help, and so I really appreciate your time, and yeah, I'm absolutely very fortunate. So I have a lot to be thankful for.
Okay, well, thanks for hopping on here with me, and I'll keep in touch with you.
Great, thank you.
All right, well, that wraps up our interview with PJ Waicus. I want to thank him for getting on, sharing his story, and of course, getting awareness about Angelman Syndrome and what that is, and just a little support for the community there. And I'll put links on our website about getting more information and if you want to contribute. So just a big thank you again to PJ, and really appreciate him coming on the show. Next week, Gary, we have James Popolo on the show.
It's going to be a great time. Definitely check it out. A lot of great advice and a fun time talking to James.
Yeah, we've already done the interview a little while ago, I guess, not a really long time ago, but it was a fun interview, Gary. I mean, here he is, a superstar athlete. He's black belt under Rafael Lovato Jr. And like right at the beginning of the interview, we were rolling, man. I mean, he had us laughing pretty good.
He's a funny guy. I didn't realize he was a teacher, middle school teacher, and you can see, I mean, just the way he speaks and the way he makes it fun. You can tell he's not only a good, when he was teaching, not only a good middle school teacher, he's a great, runs his academy, teaches his students, does a great job there too. So,
yeah.
A lot of great advice, funny interview, and just a great guy.
Yeah. It's surprising. Usually when we start an interview, it kind of starts off at whatever pace, and then after we both get relaxed and it gets going pretty good, and everybody loosens up and just kind of shares their knowledge. But right off the beginning, he had us going pretty good, and that's a good way to start an interview, and then it just gets better from there.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's next week. If in the meantime, if you get a little time to kill, you can jump on the interwebs and go to iTunes.com or on the Stitcher Radio or anywhere you find this podcast, and write us a 5-star review or any star review, I guess, whatever you think we deserve. We really like this 5 stars. Yeah,
we like 5 stars better, but we're always trying to improve. But definitely make a funny interview or a funny review. Log on to the interwebs, make the funny review, send us an email at bjjbrick@gmail.com, or send us an email on our Facebook page. Let us know that was you. Give us your address. We will get you out a BJJ Brick gi patch. And some people like to just put it on their shirts, their jeans. Not everybody puts it on their gi.
Not everybody. Gary, I actually sewed on my first gi patch the other day.
Sweet. I've been wondering who I can get to sew on gi patches for me. Now I know.
Yeah. Well, you might want to look at my handiwork because it's not quite perfect. But,
see, when I give you a couple gi patches to sew on, that'll get you more practice.
I guess. And if you want me to practice on your stuff, that's great, I guess. But I sewed it on the pant leg, and I actually have a sewing machine. I inherited it, but so I'm getting reading all the directions and stuff, and it's a skill that
Yeah, it's
I figured I'd pick it up. I wouldn't be good at it, but I could pick up a little. It's like learning how to throw a punch, and hey, at least I know that. I'm going to learn how to get this needle to attach to this cloth. And first, I tried sewing it by hand, and this was taking for this ain't going to work. So I got the sewing machine out, and I put it together.
You actually have a sewing machine?
Yeah, I inherited it, man. Yeah. So
awesome. You ever think about starting a business? Getting a little bit better at it and just starting. I mean, your business would be like Byron's gi patching, gi patches, sewn on gi patches.
You see, the problem, I would have a lot of unsatisfied customers with my quality of my work.
Well, you'd get better. I mean, you got to make it like a habit, Byron. Just make it a habit. Do a couple every day and get better.
Yeah, I do have some old gis I could just practice on.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So, but I did sew this patch on, and it's like a fairly large patch, and towards the end of it, it was getting difficult to get all of my gi stuffed in underneath the sewing machine where it has to go. Yeah. And the corner of the patch is kind of a little bit rippled. Like the chips that have the little ridges. Yeah. Kind of does that. So it's pretty good.
I got mad respect for you for trying it. I don't think I'd have the guts to try it.
But I could not. I was not sure that the patch was not just going to fall off. Because there's a thread underneath the sewing machine. There's a thread on top of the sewing machine. I'm showing my good knowledge here with this topic, but I wasn't sure the thread underneath was actually doing anything. So I could wear this, and if it falls off during class, I'll just put it on the side. Yeah, but it stayed on, and then I washed it, and it stayed on. So,
that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm now.
See, I told you you're pretty good at it.
What's the word for a person who sews?
A sewer.
A seamstress.
Seamstress.
What's the male version of that? I'll just go with seamstress. That's fine. I'll just keep that.
Byron the butcher and Byron the seamstress.
Yes. So if you want me to butcher your sewing project,
your gi, the seamstress will take care of it.
Oh, nobody wants that. Nobody wants that. So that's a little adventure I thought I would share just randomly. If you want to get a hold of us, there's a couple of easy ways. If you have an email account, you could email us at bjbrick@gmail.com. What would be a different way, Gary?
Well, the other way you could do it, besides emailing us at bjbrick@gmail.com, is you could send us a message via Facebook on the BJJ Brick Facebook page. That always works great.
Yeah.
Byron, are there any other ways?
I don't know. I imagine they could find different ways. You could Twitter us or comment on one of our videos on YouTube's. Gary, we should make some more videos, man. Next time we get together and we get a little time to spare.
I'm down for that.
That sounds like a lot of fun.
Yes. Better than sewing.
Better, yes, yep. Absolutely.
Yep. Hey, speaking of sewing, a lot of times you need to make some great designs. One of our friends and training partners, Taylor McMillan.
Yes.
I know we've talked about it before. He's awesome. The guy is majorly talented. He will hook you up with whatever you need. We'll put a link on our Facebook page. He's done a lot for us. We appreciate it, and he's a good friend of ours.
Yeah, just there's a tab on the page about logos. If you just search on our search engine on the page or type in logos or logo, he'll pop right up, and you can get a hold of him through there. And he does really good work, and he's a good buddy. So
yep, and then you just got to find a seamstress.
Yes, a local one that's not locally if you're in Wichita, Kansas.
Yep, and speaking, if you happen to come through Wichita, Kansas.
Nice segue, Gary.
Yes, told you we're getting better at that. We are located in Wichita, Kansas. If you happen to come through this area and would like to train, send us a note, send us a message. We'd love to train with you.
Absolutely. I think, Gary, this wraps up the show for the week.
We really, really appreciate you listening.
And stay sweaty, my friends.
And don't forget to shower. Make it a habit.
Nice.
Thank you for listening. I hope you find the time today to roll. After all, the best way to get better at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.